My name is Sierra Turner, 29 years old, and until last month, I was planning what I thought would be the happiest day of my life. After 3 wonderful years with Jeremy, my interior design business thriving, and my parents initially supporting our marriage, everything seemed perfect. Our families have a tradition of grand weddings, and mine would be no exception. Until that fateful dinner when my father slammed his fist on the table and announced, "We are not paying for this circus." Before I share how this devastating moment changed my life forever, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button if family drama hits close to home. Jeremy and I met at a design exhibition in downtown Portland 3 years ago. I was showcasing my first professional interior design portfolio, nervous and excited as potential clients browsed through my work. He was there representing his small but growing art gallery, displaying pieces from local artists. Our booths were positioned across from each other, and I kept catching him glancing my way with a warm smile that made my heart flutter. During a quiet moment, he approached my booth, complimenting my use of sustainable materials in modern design concepts. "Your work bridges functionality and beauty in a way I rarely see," he said. That simple comment sparked a conversation that lasted until the exhibition closed that evening. We discovered our shared passion for art, love for nature, and desire to travel to historical, architectural sites around the world. Our relationship grew organically over the following months. Jeremy was thoughtful and genuine, always encouraging my creative endeavors. When my design business faced challenges, he was my rock, offering practical advice and emotional support. When his gallery needed renovation, I helped redesign the space, turning it into a local attraction that boosted his business significantly. After 3 years together, navigating life's ups and downs as a team, Jeremy proposed at the very same exhibition where we first met, now an annual event we both participated in. He had coordinated with the organizers to announce a special presentation at his booth. When I arrived expecting to see a new artist being featured, I instead found a beautiful display of our journey together through photographs and mementos. In front of our friends and colleagues, Jeremy knelt down, holding a vintage ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "Sierra, you transformed my life from the moment you critiqued my gallery lighting that first day. Would you continue designing our life together as my wife?" I was overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down my face as I nodded and whispered, "Yes," before finding my voice to say it louder, prompting applause from the crowd around us. The ring held special significance beyond its family history. Jeremy had worked with a local jeweler to incorporate small sustainable elements that reflected my design philosophy, making it uniquely ours while honoring tradition. It was perfect, just like the moment. That weekend, we visited my parents to share our news. My mother, Diana, squealed with delight, embracing me with tears in her eyes. "My beautiful daughter is getting married," she kept repeating, examining the ring and asking about proposal details. My father, Richard, typically reserved with his emotions, clapped Jeremy on the shoulder with a genuine smile. "Welcome to the family, son," he said with uncharacteristic warmth. My younger sister, Alexis, immediately started discussing bridesmaid dresses and bachelorette party plans, her enthusiasm contagious. To celebrate our engagement, my parents hosted a special dinner at their home the following weekend. The table was decorated with flowers, candles, and my mother had prepared all my favorite dishes. During dessert, my father raised his glass for a toast. To Sierra and Jeremy, he began, his voice uncharacteristically emotional. "As the father of the bride, I have the honor and privilege of giving my daughter the wedding she deserves. Jeremy, I see how happy you make my daughter, and that means everything to a father." He turned to me, his eyes sincere. "Sierra, this is our family tradition. Your mother and I will take care of everything. We will give you the most beautiful wedding a daughter could ask for." I was touched beyond words, tears welling in my eyes as I looked at Jeremy, who appeared slightly uncomfortable but grateful. Later, he confessed his concerns about accepting such generosity, but I assured him this was important to my parents. "They want to do this for us," I explained. "It would hurt their feelings if we refused." With my parents' blessing and financial support promised, we began planning our wedding for the following fall. Approximately a year away, we compiled an initial guest list of around 150 people, including family, friends, and some business associates. My mother suggested we hire a professional wedding planner to help coordinate everything, and my father agreed it would be wise, given the size of the event. Everything seemed perfect. My design background meant I had clear visions for the aesthetic elements. Jeremy's artistic connections offered unique opportunities for entertainment and decor, and my parents' support meant we could create the celebration of our dreams without financial strain. Little did I know that this harmony would soon fracture in ways I never could have anticipated. Our wedding planning began in earnest about 11 months before our planned date. My first priority was securing the perfect venue, as I knew the best locations booked quickly, especially for fall weddings with their beautiful foliage and comfortable temperatures. I researched extensively and narrowed our options to 3 potential venues: Lakeside Gardens with its waterfront views and classic architecture, Pinewood Manor, a historic estate with charming gardens, and my personal favorite, Rosewood Estate, a renovated 19th century mansion with stunning grounds and a versatile indoor space that would allow me to truly customize our wedding design. My father agreed to accompany me to visit these venues, which initially touched me. I thought it showed his investment in our special day at Lakeside Gardens. He asked appropriate questions about capacity and amenities, though I noticed him checking his watch several times during the tour. By the time we reached Pinewood Manor, his patience seemed to be wearing thin, and he interrupted the coordinator multiple times to ask about pricing details rather than letting me inquire about design possibilities. When we arrived at Rosewood Estate, I was immediately captivated by its grandeur and potential. The estate owner, Vincent Blackwood, personally gave us the tour, passionately describing the property's history and recent renovations. While I was envisioning our ceremony in the garden and reception in the beautifully restored ballroom, my father was conspicuously checking his emails and sighing audibly. When Vincent excused himself briefly, my father turned to me. "How much longer is this going to take, Sierra? I have actual work to get back to." His comment stung, but I dismissed it as simple impatience, rather than a sign of deeper issues. "Just a few more minutes, Dad. This place is perfect. Do you not think so?" He glanced around non-committally. "It seems expensive. There are perfectly good hotel ballrooms that would cost half as much." The following week, we met with Stephanie Winters, a highly recommended wedding planner who had coordinated several celebrity weddings in our region. I brought along my mother and father as they had insisted on being involved in major decisions. Stephanie presented various package options and themes, skillfully asking questions to understand our vision. While I discussed color schemes and atmosphere, my father repeatedly steered the conversation toward costs. "And how much would that flower arrangement run?" He would interject when I mentioned liking a particular centerpiece idea in her portfolio. "Is there a cheaper alternative to that type of lighting?" After Stephanie presented a comprehensive overview of services, my father frowned. "This all seems excessive for one day, does it not?" I tried to lighten the mood. "Well, hopefully it's just one day in our lives, Dad. Most people only plan to get married once." Instead of smiling, he looked directly at me and said, "You do not think this is all a bit much? All this money for what amounts to an elaborate party?" It was the first time he had explicitly questioned the expenditure, after promising to fund the wedding. My mother quickly changed the subject, but the comment lingered uncomfortably in my mind. The experience of wedding dress shopping brought another unsettling interaction. My mother accompanied me to an upscale bridal boutique, and initially the day felt magical. The consultant brought out various styles, and my mother teared up seeing me in the first few options. However, throughout our appointment, she kept stepping outside to make phone calls, which I later realized were to my father. After trying on 7 dresses, I found the one a stunning Align gown with delicate beadwork and a subtle train. It fit my body perfectly and matched the elegant, timeless aesthetic I envisioned for our wedding. When the consultant mentioned the price, my mother's expression changed. "It is lovely, dear, but perhaps we should look at some other options before deciding. Let us think about it and come back another day." On the drive home, my mother was unusually quiet. When we arrived, my father was waiting and immediately asked about the dress. "Sierra found one. She likes," my mother said carefully. "And how much is this dress?" he asked directly. When I told him, he scoffed. "For something you will wear once. This is getting ridiculous." That weekend, we invited Jeremy over for dinner with my family, hoping to discuss wedding details together. The evening started pleasantly enough with my sister keeping conversation flowing with questions about Jeremy's gallery and upcoming exhibitions. However, halfway through the main course, my father cleared his throat and fixed Jeremy with an evaluating gaze. "So, Jeremy," he began in a tone I had heard him use in business negotiations, "you work in the art industry. How much does a gallery owner like yourself make in a year?" The table fell silent. Jeremy looked startled, but maintained his composure. "My gallery is doing well, sir. We have been growing steadily for the past few years." "That is not what I asked," my father pressed. "I asked for numbers. What is your annual income?" Jeremy glanced at me, clearly uncomfortable, but trying to be respectful. "With respect, sir, I maintain separate finances from Sierra, but we have discussed our financial situation thoroughly and are comfortable with our future together." My father's expression hardened. "So, you are counting on her income then? Or perhaps on our contributions?" I interrupted, feeling my face flush with embarrassment and anger. "Dad, that is completely inappropriate. Jeremy and I are both successful in our fields. We do not need to justify our finances to you." The remainder of dinner was painfully awkward. After Jeremy left, I confronted my father. "What was that about, Dad? You embarrassed Jeremy and me." My mother tried to mediate. "Your father is just concerned about your future, sweetie." Later that night, I pulled my mother aside for a private conversation. "Mom, what is going on with Dad? He promised to support our wedding, but now he is questioning every expense and interrogating Jeremy about money." My mother sighed, patting my hand reassuringly. "Your father is just worried, that is all. He wants to make sure you are making the right decision. Every father gets protective when his daughter is getting married. Everything will be fine. I promise." Her words were meant to comfort, but something in her tone made me wonder if she truly believed them herself. For the first time, I began to worry that our wedding planning might not proceed as smoothly as I had hoped. With my parents still officially supporting our wedding plans despite the growing tension, Jeremy and I moved forward with securing our dream venue. After thorough consideration, we decided Rosewood Estate was perfect for our autumn ceremony and reception. We scheduled a meeting with Vincent Blackwood to discuss contract details and put down a deposit. On the day of our appointment, my father called to say he could not attend due to an unexpected business meeting. "Just call me if you need approval for anything," he said hurriedly before hanging up. Jeremy and I exchanged concerned glances, but proceeded with the meeting. Vincent greeted us warmly in his office, a beautifully restored room with original woodwork and modern amenities. He presented the contract, explaining each section carefully. "For your date next October, we require a $5,000 deposit today to secure the booking," Vincent explained. "This deposit is non-refundable if you cancel, as we will be turning away other potential clients for your date." I called my father as agreed, putting him on speakerphone to discuss the deposit. "Yes, fine," he said distractedly. "Put it on my credit card. I will text you the information." With my father's verbal approval and payment information, Jeremy and I signed the contract. Vincent seemed genuinely excited about our vision for the wedding. "Your background in interior design will make this event spectacular," Vincent commented. I rarely meet couples with such a clear and cohesive vision. As we were leaving, Vincent mentioned something that would later prove significant. "I personally oversee all events at Rosewood. Your wedding will receive my full attention, not just my staff." The next major hurdle arose when we began finalizing our guest list. What should have been a straightforward process became increasingly contentious. My mother presented me with a list of 20 additional guests. My father wanted to invite business associates I had never met. "Dad, this is our wedding, not a networking event," I protested during Sunday dinner. "Jeremy and I want an intimate celebration with people who actually know and care about us." My father looked up from his plate, his expression stern. "I am paying for this wedding, Sierra. These people are important to me and our family business." "So this wedding is about you?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "Do not be dramatic," he replied dismissively. "This is how these things work. The parents of the bride invite their colleagues and associates. It is tradition, it is outdated tradition," I countered. "And you promised this wedding was for us, not for your business connections." He set down his fork with a clatter. "This wedding is costing me a small fortune. The least you can do is accommodate a few guests who might actually be useful to our family's future." The argument ended with me reluctantly agreeing to add 10 of his business associates to the guest list, a compromise that left neither of us satisfied. Later that evening, Jeremy tried to comfort me. "It is not worth fighting with your parents over a few extra guests," he said softly. "We will still have our perfect day." I nodded, but the interaction had left me unsettled. It was becoming clear that my father viewed his financial contribution as purchasing control over our wedding decisions. The next conflict erupted over the menu selection. Jeremy and I had envisioned a creative, personalized menu that reflected our first dates and favorite shared meals. We wanted food stations rather than a formal sit-down dinner, allowing guests to mingle and enjoy variety. When we presented this idea to my parents, my father immediately objected. "No, no, no. We need a proper sit-down dinner with prime rib and salmon options. Food stations look cheap and disorganized." "But Dad, food stations can actually be more expensive than traditional service," I explained. "And they reflect our style better. If I am paying, we will have proper table service," he insisted. "Your artistic ideas are fine for your little design projects, but a wedding is a formal occasion." His dismissal of my professional expertise stung. My little design projects have been featured in regional magazines. I reminded him, trying to keep my voice level. "This is not about your career, Sierra. This is about what is appropriate for a wedding. When you pay for your own events, you can serve food however you want." My mother, who had initially supported many of our ideas, began to side more consistently with my father. During a call about floral arrangements, she sighed when I described the wildflower aesthetic I preferred. "Honey, perhaps we should consider more traditional arrangements. Your father is being very generous with this wedding budget. We should be grateful and compromise on some things." "Compromise seems to mean doing everything his way," I replied, frustration mounting. "He is your father and he loves you," she said, her tone carrying a warning. "You should appreciate that he and I are paying for this beautiful wedding." A week later, during a meeting with Stephanie, our wedding planner, she pulled me aside while Jeremy was discussing music options with the potential DJ. "Sierra, I have been doing this for 15 years, she said, quietly. "I have seen this dynamic before. When parents are paying, they often feel entitled to make the decisions. Sometimes it helps to have an honest conversation about expectations and boundaries before things escalate further." "They promised this wedding was for us," I said, hearing the hurt in my own voice. "I know," she replied sympathetically, "but money and family emotions are a complicated mix. Consider talking with them about what decisions are most important to you and where you are willing to compromise." That evening, Jeremy and I had a serious discussion about the growing tension. We sat on our small apartment balcony the spring evening, still carrying a slight chill as we sipped tea and faced the reality of our situation. "I hate seeing you stressed like this," Jeremy said, taking my hand. "Maybe we should consider paying for the wedding ourselves. We could scale back, do something smaller, but completely ours. We would lose the deposit at Rosewood," I pointed out, "and we would have to wait longer to save enough." "It might be worth it for your peace of mind," he suggested. "Your relationship with your parents is more important than one day, no matter how special." I leaned against his shoulder, considering his words. "Let me try talking to them one more time. Maybe if they understand how their behavior is affecting me, they will remember why they offered to help in the first place." Jeremy nodded, kissing the top of my head. "Whatever you decide, I am with you. All I care about is marrying you, whether that happens at Rosewood Estate or the courthouse downtown." His unwavering support strengthened my resolve to have an honest conversation with my parents, hoping to salvage both our wedding plans and my relationship with them. Little did I know that this conversation would change everything in ways I never could have anticipated. After careful consideration, I decided to speak with my parents alone without Jeremy present. I thought they might be more receptive if they did not feel outnumbered or that I was choosing his side over theirs. I drove to their house on a Tuesday evening, knowing my father would be home from work and they would have no other commitments. My stomach twisted with anxiety as I pulled into their driveway. The two-story colonial where I had grown up looked the same as always, well-maintained and imposing. My mother answered the door with a smile that faded when she saw my serious expression. "Sierra, we were not expecting you tonight. Is everything all right?" "I need to talk to you and Dad," I said, stepping inside. "It is important." She led me to the living room, where my father sat in his favorite leather armchair, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed some documents. He looked up, surprised to see me. "Sierra, what brings you by unannounced?" I took a seat on the sofa across from him, while my mother perched nervously on the armrest of his chair. The tension was palpable even before I spoke. "I want to talk about the wedding," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Things have not been going the way Jeremy and I hoped, and I feel like we need to clear the air." My father removed his glasses, his expression guarded. "What seems to be the problem?" Taking a deep breath, I continued. "When you offered to pay for our wedding, it seemed like a wonderful gift. But since then, it feels like every decision has to meet your approval. I feel like Jeremy and I have no say in our own wedding day." "That is not fair, Sierra," my mother interjected. "We have agreed to many of your ideas. Only the ones Dad approves of," I countered. "Look, I understand that since you are contributing financially, you want some input. But this is still our wedding, and lately it feels like Dad is treating it like a business transaction, where he has the controlling interest." My father's jaw tightened. "We are spending a considerable amount of money on this event. Of course, we should have input. Input is different from control," I explained. "And if this arrangement is not working, Jeremy and I are prepared to take over the financial responsibility ourselves. We would rather have a smaller wedding that reflects who we are than a lavish event that feels like someone else's vision." I expected resistance, perhaps even anger. But what happened next caught me completely off guard. My father slammed his palm down on the side table, causing both my mother and me to jump. "I've had a long conversation with Jeremy's father," he announced, his voice cold. My confusion must have shown on my face. "You talked to Mr. Hayes when why?" "Because that is what responsible parents do," he replied. And what I discovered was very interesting. Did you know his family nearly went bankrupt 5 years ago? His father made some questionable investment decisions, and they lost almost everything. My heart sank. Jeremy had shared this difficult chapter of his family's history with me early in our relationship. His parents had indeed faced financial hardship, but they had worked incredibly hard to rebuild their lives. Jeremy had even postponed his own education to help support them during that time. Something I deeply respected. "I know about that," I said quietly. "Jeremy told me everything. Did he tell you that his gallery is barely breaking even? That he had to take out loans to keep it afloat last year?" My father leaned forward, his expression hard. "He is marrying into a financially stable family, Sierra. Do you not see the pattern? He is targeting you for your money, or rather, for my money." The accusation was so absurd that for a moment I could not speak. Jeremy was one of the most hard-working, independent people I knew. He had built his gallery from nothing, refusing help even when it was offered. "That is completely untrue." I finally managed to say, "Jeremy has never asked me for money. He has never even let me help with his business even though I have offered. He is proud, Dad. Too proud sometimes." "All men are proud in public," my father scoffed. "But I see what he is doing. This wedding, the venue, the guest list, all of it screams someone trying to elevate their social position." "You are the one who insisted on the expensive venue and formal dinner," I exclaimed, incredulous at the twisted logic. To my shock, my mother spoke up next, her voice uncharacteristically harsh. "Sierra, your father and I have done extensive research on Jeremy and his family. We have been in this world longer than you have. We recognize when someone is not being genuine." "What are you talking about?" "What research?" I demanded. "We hired someone to look into his background," my father admitted, without a hint of remorse. "His business is struggling more than he has let on. His credit score is concerning. He is not the successful gallery owner he pretends to be." I felt physically ill at this invasion of privacy. "You investigated my fiancé without telling me. We are protecting you," my mother insisted. "You are blinded by love, but we see the reality. He is not good enough for you, Sierra. He does not have the means to give you the life you deserve." "The life you think I deserve," I corrected, my voice shaking with anger. "I do not care about any of that. I love Jeremy for who he is, not his bank account." "You say that now," my father countered. "But what about when you want to buy a house, have children? Will you be satisfied when he cannot provide those things?" "We will work together to build our life," I insisted. "That is what partnerships are about." My father stood up suddenly, towering over me. His face had turned an alarming shade of red, and he pointed his finger at me accusingly. "We are not paying for this circus," he shouted, his voice echoing through the room. "I will not fund this mistake. You are determined to make." My mother placed her hand on his arm, not to calm him, but in solidarity. "Find someone who can afford you, Sierra," she added, her voice cold. "Someone from our circle who understands our world." I sat there stunned by the venom in their words. These were my parents, the people who had always claimed to want my happiness above all else. Now they were revealing conditional love I had never seen before, tied to social status and financial considerations I had never valued. After a moment of stunned silence, I stood up, surprising myself with how calm I felt despite the storm raging inside me. "I understand," I said simply. "You understand what my father demanded, perhaps expecting me to beg or argue further. I understand who you really are now," I replied softly. "And I understand what I need to do." I walked out without another word, ignoring my mother calling my name. The drive home was a blur of tears and disbelief. When I arrived at our apartment, Jeremy took one look at my face and immediately wrapped me in his arms. Through broken sobs, I recounted everything, including the hurtful accusations and the shocking revelation that they had investigated his background. Instead of anger, Jeremy's response was filled with concern for me. "I am so sorry they hurt you like this," he whispered, stroking my hair. "We will figure this out together, I promise." That night, as I lay awake in Jeremy's arms, I realized that while my parents had just canceled our wedding venue and financial support, they had revealed something far more valuable: the truth about their conditional love and their willingness to manipulate and control, rather than support my happiness. It was a painful revelation, but one that would ultimately lead to unexpected developments and a stronger future than I could have imagined. Neither Jeremy nor I slept much that night. We stayed up talking, processing the shocking confrontation with my parents, and discussing our options moving forward. By dawn, we had made some difficult but necessary decisions. "We should cancel the Rosewood reservation," Jeremy said, his voice gentle but firm. "We will lose the deposit, but we need to start fresh on our own terms." I nodded, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. "You are right, and we should plan something smaller, something we can afford ourselves." "What about a small ceremony at Riverside Park?" Jeremy suggested, "where we had our 1-year anniversary picnic. It would be meaningful and beautiful." The thought of a simple, intimate ceremony surrounded only by people who truly supported us brought the first genuine smile to my face since the previous evening. I love that idea. As soon as business hours began, I called Rosewood Estate to cancel our reservation. Vincent Blackwood himself answered the phone, his warm voice immediately bringing back memories of our excited planning sessions. "Rosewood Estate," Vincent speaking. "Hello, Vincent. This is Sierra Turner. I am calling about my wedding reservation for October 12th. "Sierra, wonderful to hear from you. How can I help with your plans today?" I swallowed hard before responding. "Actually, I need to cancel our reservation. Some circumstances have changed, and we will not be able to proceed with our event at Rosewood." There was a brief silence before Vincent spoke again, his voice concerned. "I am sorry to hear that. May I ask what happened?" "Perhaps there is a solution we have not considered." Something about his genuine concern broke through my composed facade. "My parents were funding the wedding, but they have withdrawn their support. They do not approve of my fiancé's financial situation." Another pause, longer this time. I see Vincent finally said, his tone shifting from professional to personal. "If you do not mind my asking, do you and your fiancé still want to get married?" "Absolutely," I replied, without hesitation. "We will just have a much smaller ceremony elsewhere, something we can afford ourselves." "Sierra, would you mind if I shared something personal with you?" Vincent asked unexpectedly. "Of course not." 30 years ago, I was in your fiancé's position," he began. "I wanted to marry the love of my life, but her parents thought I was beneath their daughter. I was just starting in the hospitality business, working long hours for little pay, while her family owned 3 successful restaurants. They offered to pay for a lavish wedding, but only if she chose someone else. My breath caught. What happened? "We eloped," he said with a soft chuckle. "Her parents did not speak to us for 2 years, but eventually they saw how happy she was, how hard I worked to build this business. Now we host family gatherings here every holiday. That is a beautiful story, I said, genuinely touched. The point is, sometimes the people who love us most can hurt us deepest, Vincent continued. They think they are protecting us, but they are actually protecting their own vision of what our lives should be. As his words sank in, Vincent surprised me with an unexpected proposal. Sierra, I am going to do something I have never done before. Rosewood will refund your deposit in full. What? But the contract clearly states it is non-refundable, I protested, shocked by his offer. Yes, but I own this place and I make the rules, he replied, with a smile in his voice. But that is not all. I would like to offer you and Jeremy our Maple Garden package at our minimum cost. No profit margin, just enough to cover our expenses. I was speechless for a moment. Vincent, that is incredibly generous, but I cannot accept that. Your business would lose money. Not at all, he countered. I built this place from nothing, and now it is quite successful. I can afford to help one couple who reminds me so much of my wife and myself all those years ago. Besides, your design background and Jeremy's artistic connections would make for a wedding that would be featured in magazines, bringing Rosewood valuable publicity. Still stunned by his offer, I asked, what about the refund? You would return the money to my father? Yes, Vincent confirmed. With one condition. I will personally call him to explain that, while his money is being returned, the wedding at Rosewood is still happening. I will not mention the discount, of course, just that the venue has made other arrangements directly with you. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Why would you do this for us? Because 30 years ago, someone took a chance on me when my future in-laws thought I was nothing, Vincent explained. And because I believe in true partnerships, not marriages based on financial statements. The look on your faces when you toured this property told me everything I needed to know about your relationship. After discussing the details further and consulting with Jeremy, who was equally amazed by Vincent's generosity, we accepted his extraordinary offer. The wedding was back on, albeit in a modified form that we could supplement with our own savings. True to his word, Vincent called my father later that day. I was not present for the conversation, but Vincent later told me it went exactly as planned. My father was initially confused about why the venue owner was calling him directly, then shocked to hear about the refund, and finally furious when Vincent explained that the wedding would proceed without his financial involvement. The consequences of that call came swiftly. My phone rang less than an hour later, my father's name flashing on the screen. Bracing myself, I answered. What have you done? He demanded without preamble, his voice tight with anger. Hello to you too, Dad, I replied calmly. Do not be smart with me, Sierra. Why did the owner of Rosewood call me? What did you tell him? I simply explained that you were no longer funding our wedding, I answered. He made his own decisions after that. He said he is refunding our deposit, but that your wedding is still happening there. How is that possible? What kind of game are you playing? No game, Dad. Jeremy and I are getting married at Rosewood. Just not with your money. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. You cannot afford that place on your own. What did you tell them about us to get this special treatment? The truth, I said simply that you investigated my fiancé's financial history without his knowledge or consent, and then withdrew your support because he does not meet your income requirements for a son-in-law. His voice lowered dangerously. You are embarrassing this family. No, Dad. You embarrassed yourself. With that, I ended the call, my hand shaking, but my resolve stronger than ever. Jeremy, who had been listening to my side of the conversation, pulled me into a hug. Are you okay? I nodded against his chest. Better than okay. For the first time since this all started, I feel like we are taking control back. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a confrontation that would ultimately lead to unexpected healing and a deeper understanding between all parties involved. The day after Vincent's call to my father, my parents appeared unannounced at our apartment door. Jeremy had just left for the gallery, so I faced them alone, standing firmly in the doorway rather than inviting them inside. My father looked furious, his face flushed and jaw tight. My mother stood slightly behind him, her expression a mixture of anger and what might have been concern. We need to talk, my father demanded. I think we said everything that needed saying the other night, I replied coolly. Sierra, please, my mother interjected. This situation has gotten out of hand. Reluctantly, I stepped aside to let them enter our modest apartment. My father immediately began pacing our small living room, taking in the art pieces Jeremy had collected and the design elements I had carefully integrated into our home. What exactly did you tell the owner of Rosewood? He asked, turning to face me. He was incredibly rude on the phone, suggesting we had somehow wronged you. I told him the truth, I replied, that you withdrew your financial support because you do not approve of Jeremy's income level. You are making us look terrible to strangers, my father exclaimed. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that call was? He practically accused me of trying to buy my daughter a different husband. And is that not exactly what you were trying to do? I challenged. You literally told me to find someone who could afford me, as if I am a luxury item rather than a person with her own heart and mind. My mother stepped forward. Sierra, you are twisting our words. We only want what is best for you. No, I countered firmly. You want what you think is best for me. There is a huge difference. Before my mother could respond, the apartment door opened and Jeremy entered, stopping short when he saw my parents. His expression shifted from surprise to determination as he moved to stand beside me. Richard, Diana, he acknowledged them with a nod. I came back because I forgot some paperwork, but I am glad you are here. We should clear the air. My father turned to Jeremy, his posture confrontational. You have turned my daughter against us. Jeremy remained calm. I have done nothing of the sort. Sierra makes her own decisions. She always has, which is one of the many reasons I love her. You are manipulating her, my father insisted, making her choose between her family and you. No, sir, Jeremy replied firmly. You did that when you investigated me without my knowledge, and then tried to cancel our wedding based on your findings. Sierra and I were planning a life together. You are the ones who presented an ultimatum. My mother looked uncomfortable. We were only trying to protect her from what Jeremy asked. From a man who loves her more than anything, who supports her dreams and ambitions, who would never ask her to be anything other than exactly who she is. For the first time, I saw my mother truly looking at Jeremy, seeing beyond her preconceptions and my father's influence. My family did struggle financially. Jeremy continued addressing the unspoken accusation hanging between them. My father made some poor investments, and we lost nearly everything. But do you know what that taught me? The value of hard work, resilience, and that money does not define a person's worth. He took a step closer to my parents. I rebuilt my life from nothing. My gallery may not be hugely profitable yet, but it grows every year. I have never taken a handout, and I certainly did not pursue Sierra for her family's money. In fact, until this wedding planning began, I had no idea of your financial situation, beyond knowing you lived comfortably. As Jeremy spoke, the apartment door opened again, startling all of us. Vincent Blackwood stood in the doorway, looking slightly embarrassed. I am so sorry to interrupt, he said. The building manager let me in. I wanted to drop off some revised paperwork for Sierra and Jeremy, but I can come back later. My father stared at Vincent in disbelief. You? What are you doing here? Vincent straightened, extending his hand to my father. Mr. Turner, I believe we spoke on the phone yesterday. I am Vincent Blackwood, owner of Rosewood Estate. My father ignored the outstretched hand. I know who you are. What I do not understand is why you are inserting yourself into a family matter. I did not intend to, Vincent replied, lowering his hand but maintaining his dignified composure. But when Sierra called to cancel her wedding, something in her story resonated deeply with me. This is completely unprofessional, my father fumed. Perhaps Vincent acknowledged, but sometimes human decency trumps business protocol. He turned to include all of us in his gaze. May I share something with you, Mr. Turner? Without waiting for permission, Vincent continued. 30 years ago, I was in Jeremy's position. I fell in love with a woman whose parents thought I was beneath their family's status. Her father was a successful restaurateur, while I was just starting out in the hospitality business with more dreams than dollars. My father's expression remained stony, but he did not interrupt. Her parents did everything they could to break us up, Vincent went on. They investigated my finances, criticized my ambitions, even tried to introduce her to more suitable men. Sound familiar? My mother shifted uncomfortably, while my father's jaw tightened further. "We married anyway," Vincent said, with a gentle smile. Against their wishes, with just a few friends present, her parents refused to attend. "They did not speak to us for 2 years? Is there a point to this story?" my father asked tersely. "Yes," Vincent replied. 2 years after our wedding, her father had a heart attack. Despite everything, my wife rushed to his side. During his recovery, he got to know me, really know me, not just my bank statement. He saw how happy his daughter was, how hard I worked, how much we loved each other. Vincent's eyes met my father's directly. Before he died 10 years later, he told me his greatest regret was missing our wedding and wasting 2 years of relationship because of his pride and preconceptions. The room fell silent as Vincent's words hung in the air. After a moment, he continued more gently. "Mr. Turner, I see a lot of myself in Jeremy, and frankly, a lot of my father-in-law in you. You are a successful man who worked hard to provide for your family. You want to protect your daughter from hardship. That comes from love misguided, though your actions may be." To my astonishment, my father did not immediately dismiss Vincent's words. Instead, he sank onto our sofa, suddenly looking older and more vulnerable than I had ever seen him. "I just want her to have an easier life than I did," he said quietly, almost to himself. "When I was starting out, Diana and I struggled so much. There were nights we could not pay the heating bill, times we had to choose between medicine for Sierra and paying the rent." I stared at my father in shock. He had never shared these details of their early life before. "I promised myself my daughter would never know that kind of worry," he continued. "Never have to count pennies or lie awake wondering how to make ends meet." My mother moved to sit beside him, taking his hand. "We only wanted to protect you from the struggles we faced," she said, looking at me with tears in her eyes. For the first time, I understood their perspective, even if I did not agree with their methods. "Dad, Mom, I appreciate that you wanted to shield me from hardship, but trying to control who I love is not protection, it is possession." Jeremy knelt in front of my parents, a gesture of both humility and determination. "I cannot promise we will never struggle financially. No one can predict the future, but I can promise that I will always put Sierra's happiness and well-being first. We will face whatever comes together as partners." My father looked at Jeremy for a long moment, really seeing him perhaps for the first time. "You really love her that much enough to face her angry father and stand your ground?" Jeremy nodded without hesitation. "I would face anything for her." Something shifted in my father's expression, a subtle softening around the eyes. "I was wrong about you," he admitted, the words clearly difficult for him to say. "And I was wrong about how I handled this situation." Vincent, who had been quietly observing, smiled gently. "It takes a strong man to admit when he's wrong, Mr. Turner. Stronger than one who never makes mistakes." My father stood and extended his hand to Jeremy, who rose to accept it. "I cannot promise I will not worry about my daughter's future," my father said. "That is a father's prerogative, but I can promise to respect your relationship and support your marriage." The tension that had filled our small apartment began to dissipate, replaced by cautious hope. My mother wiped tears from her eyes and embraced me tightly. "I am so sorry, sweetheart," she whispered. "We got so caught up in our fears that we forgot what truly matters, your happiness." As Vincent prepared to leave, having witnessed the beginning of our reconciliation, my father stopped him. "Thank you," he said simply, "for sharing your story and for giving my daughter and future son-in-law a chance when I failed to do so." Vincent nodded in acknowledgement. Sometimes we all need a reminder of what truly matters in life. It is never the size of a bank account or the prestige of a job title. It is always the love we give and receive. As the door closed behind Vincent, I looked around at my parents and Jeremy, feeling as though we had all just weathered a terrible storm and emerged battered but intact on the other side. There was still healing to be done, trust to be rebuilt. But the foundation for reconciliation had been laid thanks to the unexpected intervention of a stranger who recognized in our story echoes of his own past. 6 months later, on a perfect October day with leaves of gold and crimson creating a natural cathedral in the gardens of Rosewood Estate, I stood with my father at the entrance to the aisle. The venue was not as lavish as originally planned, but it was beautiful in a more meaningful way. Jeremy and I had worked with Vincent to create a celebration that truly reflected our values and relationships, spending our own money alongside the discounted rate Vincent had honored. My father, looking distinguished in his tuxedo, held my arm with a gentleness that conveyed both pride and remorse. In the months since our confrontation, we had engaged in many difficult but healing conversations. He had come to know Jeremy as a person, not just a financial statement, and had even invested in expanding Jeremy's gallery, not as a controlling gesture, but as a genuine vote of confidence in his business acumen. "You look beautiful, Sierra," my father said, his voice thick with emotion. "I am so sorry. I almost ruined this day for you." I squeezed his arm reassuringly. "But you did not ruin it. In a strange way, what happened made today more meaningful. We are all here because of choice and love, not obligation." As the music began and we started our walk down the aisle, I saw Jeremy waiting for me, his eyes filled with love and promise. Our journey to this moment had been unexpectedly tumultuous, but we had emerged stronger, both as a couple and as part of a newly configured family dynamic. The ceremony was simple but profound, with vows we had written ourselves that acknowledged both the easy and difficult aspects of commitment. When the officiant pronounced us married, the applause from our truly supportive guests felt like a healing balm. After months of tension and uncertainty during the reception, held in Rosewood's beautifully restored ballroom, my father requested the microphone for a toast. I felt a momentary flutter of anxiety, wondering what he might say, but Jeremy squeezed my hand reassuringly. My father cleared his throat, looking out at the gathered guests, many of whom knew nothing of the drama that had preceded this day. "When my daughter was born," he began, "I made a silent promise to protect her from all hardship and pain. As she grew, I thought I knew what was best for her, what would make her happy and secure." He paused, his eyes finding mine. I was wrong. A murmur rippled through the crowd at this unexpected admission. I nearly lost my daughter because I could not see beyond my own fears and preconceptions. He continued, "I thought love was about control and protection, but Sierra and Jeremy taught me that real love is about trust and acceptance." He raised his glass toward us. "To my daughter and new son-in-law, thank you for your forgiveness and for teaching this old man that happiness cannot be purchased or planned, only recognized and cherished when it appears. May your marriage be filled with the wisdom and compassion you have already shown to this imperfect father." Tears streamed down my face as I embraced my father, feeling the last walls between us crumble. My mother joined our embrace, whispering apologies and love in my ear. In the months that followed our wedding, the healing continued. My parents and Jeremy's family, initially awkward around each other, gradually developed a genuine friendship based on their shared love for us and their belated recognition of how similar their life journeys had actually been. Jeremy and I channeled our creative energies into launching a joint venture, a design studio that combined my interior expertise with his artistic connections. To our surprise, my father became one of our strongest advocates, introducing us to his business associates, not as a controlling gesture, but as a genuine belief in our talents. 6 months after our wedding, my parents invited us to dinner at their home. As we sat in the dining room where so many tense conversations had occurred, my mother served my favorite childhood dishes, and my father opened a bottle of champagne. "We have an announcement," he said, looking more relaxed than I had seen him in years. "Your mother and I have been doing some reflecting on our own journey." My mother smiled, taking his hand. "We realized that in our effort to give you a better life than we had, we forgot to tell you about the beauty of our early struggles, how they strengthened our bond and taught us what truly matters. So, we have decided to renew our vows," my father continued. "A simple ceremony that celebrates not just the comfortable life we eventually built, but the difficult beginning that made us who we are, and we would be honored if you and Jeremy would help us plan it." The request brought fresh tears to my eyes, representing, as it did, a complete reversal of the control dynamics that had caused so much pain. "We would love to," I replied, feeling Jeremy's supportive hand on my shoulder. A year after my wedding day, as I sit reflecting on the journey we have all taken, I am struck by the profound lessons learned through conflict and reconciliation. I learned that sometimes those who love us most can hurt us deepest often, because their fear of our pain blinds them to our strength. I discovered that standing firm for your own truth, even when painful, ultimately creates more authentic relationships than acquiescence ever could. Most importantly, I realized that true family bonds are not about control or conditions, but about growing together through conflict and forgiveness, allowing each member the dignity of their own path, while providing support rather than direction. If my story resonates with you, perhaps you are facing your own family conflicts or conditional relationships. Remember that boundaries are acts of love, both for yourself and for those who need to learn to respect your autonomy. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone trying to control you is to lovingly refuse to be controlled. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who thought they knew what was best for you? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that standing in their truth is not selfish, but necessary for authentic relationships to flourish. Thank you for witnessing my story, and may your own relationships grow stronger through honesty and mutual respect.